Welcome to ADHD Friendly. I'm Patty. I am a mom of four, an ADHD coach, and my passion is finding ways to bring some ADHD friendly into my life every day so that I am tilting that playing field in my favor instead of working against my brain. This is episode 171. I'm recording solo today. Becca is out sick and I'm wearing my new sweater. So I was going to delay and wait until she's here later in the week, but I got to just go with the moment because that required too much planning and decision making. It was just easier to record. I've got my German Shepherd here and I'm going to be talking to her instead of Becca. She's my fill-in for the day. So today I'm going to be sharing, as I always do, a celebration tied to my word of the year. And then I have a tip that is called, it's about creating a rotation zone. I'm going to talk about what that is and how just the slight pivot on a very common recommendation for, kind of decluttering and getting things out that you're not using, really, I found very sparkly. So I just wanted to share it in case it might work with you. And then my main topic for today is resetting your New Year's goals. So if perfectionism has gotten in your way, if you have forgotten what you decided you were going to do, or if you've just fallen off of your intentions, that happens. So end of January is a good time to reset and reconnect and just allow yourself a little grace so that you can tap back into and reconnect to what you're prioritizing for the coming 2025 year. All right, so let's jump in with my celebration. I dared myself. So my word for the year is dare, be daring, step outside my comfort zone. I dared myself to go and see the vampire movie, and I always say this wrong, NosFeratu. I don't know why, that's just one of those words that my brain does not pronounce. This was over the holidays. My sons were so excited about going. My husband was going with them and they really wanted me to go with them, even though they know this really isn't my kind of movie. But I grew up watching vampire movies. I kind of always liked them. So I didn't, but then even though I was like, maybe, but I don't like being scared in theaters. I'd much rather be at home if I'm going to watch a scary movie. And I don't like things that could maybe stick in my brain and hold on to that scariness that would maybe get in the way of me falling asleep or having bad dreams or that kind of thing. So I dared myself to go and said yes. And partly because it made my husband so stinking happy that I was going to go see a horror scary movie with him, because he loves nothing more than to hear me scream in the middle of a theater. And I hate nothing more than when I scream in the middle of a theater because it's embarrassing, but it does make him really happy. So I was like, okay, I'll go. So I dared myself and I'm super proud of it. But I hated it. I really did not like the movie. If you've seen it and you feel differently, post in the comments. This is episode 171, but maybe you agree. It was not scary, which is good. I was actually really bored. I fell asleep for part of it. It was just not my thing. But I still am proud of myself for saying yes and daring myself to go, even though going into the movie, I literally turned to one of my sons and said, I feel like I'm getting ready, like you're like on the upswing of a roller coaster and it just kind of connected and it's taking you to the top. And I was so nervous and it was so not something to be afraid of. So I'm glad I challenged myself, but it's like I always think of when I go see movies, I can't get that time back. But my kids were a little bit more okay with it than I was, even though nobody really loved it. Although I take that back. One of my sons did love it. He said it was one of his favorite movies of the year. Yeah, that's why it's so important to really hold on to remembering everybody's different. Everybody takes things a little differently, has things that they like or don't like, and we're all individual and that's okay. So that was my win. What I purchased this week, I held true to my trend and haven't purchased anything new. So that's another celebration, another win, except I did mention I purchased this sweater, which I have to say, I don't love it. It was definitely, I think, on clearance because it has a really, really, even though it's a size medium, it's like this really big, like I feel like I'm huge in it. But the high today is 18 here in Chicago. And It's a good thing to wear a turtleneck with, which I thought my turtleneck went kind of okay with it. It just feels very, but I am warm. So I guess that's a win. And it was like $11. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to keep it. I'm taking back the other. I ordered three. One of them, oh my gosh, it was like so huge. It was just so oddly made that I'm like, yeah, there's a reason this never sold. It just looks, I don't know anybody this would look good on. And I'm still waiting for one more to arrive, but I didn't purchase anything additional this week. So another little win. All right, so this is my tip for the week, and it is designate a rotation zone, not zone. I have a little congestion. So this came from a House Beautiful article, and they said to think of January as a time to really explore what's in your closet in terms of clothing. And I'm going to read this quote. They said, designate a staging space for rotation pieces. Have a spot in your closet or wardrobe for items you're not sure about. Pieces you may want to keep or be ready to let go of. Place these in a rotation zone. And if you haven't worn them by next season, it's time to let them go. This helps keep your closet streamlined and clutter-free. And it also helps keep these items front of mind. This hit me differently. Now, I know I used to be a professional organizer, so I know the more common recommendations, such as take the items and turn the hanger around. So if you haven't turned the hanger back around, then you know you haven't worn it. But I like the idea of keeping it really front of mind, because what I will do is I will clean out my closet and I'll keep the item where it is. I'll just turn the hanger around. But if the item's in the back of my closet, I'm not going to go back there and notice the hanger's turned around that I haven't worn it. So it will get in the way of me making the decision that I really no longer need it, because in my brain, I'll decide it's because I forgot it was there and I need to give it another year. I have things that have been in my closet like that with the hanger backwards for years. So I like this idea of having a rotation zone, but keeping it front of mind. So maybe like turning the things around that are seasonal and putting them in the front of your closet where you can see them, and really intentionally be able to notice if you wear it at all throughout the season. Because what I do know happens for me is whether it's in the bottom of my drawer or back of the shelf, back of the closet, if it isn't front of mind, I am so out of sight, out of mind, I won't even see it, but then I won't get rid of it because I just assume it's because I didn't see it. So for me, the idea that stuck was having a rotation zone intentionally move to the forefront of where you are getting your things from. So whether it's socks, underwear, shoes, whatever it is, that they are going to be the first thing that you are encountering. So you're remembering that you have it. And if you still notice by the end of the season that you have not worn that thing, then it feels like it'd be easier to make the decision to let it go, because it wasn't that it was out of sight, out of mind. It was that really it's not something I'm choosing to wear. That's another one of my tips, completely separate, but I will pick it up and say, if this was in a store right now, would I buy it? And more times than not, the answer is no. And that can help me kind of get out of that whole like sunk cost, or I already have it, I should figure out a way to use it. If it's I wouldn't buy it today. Why do I want it in my closet? But if the idea of a rotation zone resonates with you, I'd love to hear how you use it, what you notice. Post in the comments in episode 171 and share what you learned, or if there's another tip that helps you to pare down what you own by letting go of those things that you are no longer using or really haven't worn in a long time. All right, on to our topic for this episode, and that is to do a reset. We're still in January, but research shows that 43% of New Year's resolutions are abandoned by the end of this month. 43%, that's almost half of anybody that set an intention for the year, it's gone. And what I know for those of us with ADHD is that number, we're on the high end. We are definitely contributing to that percentage. And by the end of February, 94% of all intentions, aims, resolutions, goals are gone, done. So only 6% of people that set them are still connected to them and working on them by the end of February. So I thought this would be a really good time to kind of hit the pause button and reset your New Year's goals if you need to, and really notice if perfectionism is getting in the way. So let's kind of break this down. Maybe you joined a gym and you were so excited. You thought the accountability was going to work, whatever it is. But then you just stop going. And you're noticing now, like, yeah, that's really fallen off. Whether, the weather got in the way or the time of day that you decided to go, whatever it is, stop. And instead of judging yourself, ask yourself, where am I feeling resistance for doing this? And allow yourself to identify any and all resistance you have, because then you can figure out what to do with that resistance instead of expecting yourself to just push past it. That's not a good strategy. It's not typically one that's going to work. I want to keep you from becoming one of the 94% at the end of February and readjust your expectations now. Or maybe you decided to eat healthier, which is another really common goal. And maybe you do sometimes, but it's not in line with what you really intended. Allowing yourself to not get on that kind of jump in the perfectionism, like, oh, I was going to do this, I'm not doing it, I'm not going to do it, I'll think of another time to start, or whatever it is. Allow yourself to acknowledge that perfectionism isn't real. Progress is. Progress is something we can measure. Perfection is this elusive, undefined result that isn't something that's achievable. Progress is achievable. So acknowledge if you went to the gym once, you went. Or if you joined the gym and haven't gone, you still took the step to join. Acknowledge what you have done and then explore where the resistance is to continuing to take one step beyond where you are and not expecting yourself to be at the finish line already. My example where perfect stopped getting in the way of me doing something year after year was my yoga routine. I tried for years before I found a way that worked for me. And I've now been doing it for more than 3 years. If I tried to do that through the lens of perfectionism, I would still be struggling to put a plan in place. I struggled for at least 3 years to put any kind of consistent yoga routine in place beyond doing it once or twice, literally, like it just did not work. But I continued tweaking it and allowing myself to notice. And it took me years. It wasn't something I figured out like middle of January, the first month I tried. It was literally years where I was like, oh my gosh, I keep trying to do this and I can't figure out how. And gyms don't work for me. Exercise classes don't work for me. At least they haven't yet. And so I really didn't want to have to do that. So I kept trying to figure out what can I do in a way that will work for me at home, that has the same kind of accountability that I created, that would be created if I joined a gym and went to a class without having to do the class. And I've shared many times over the years how I found yoga with Adrienne, and I decided on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday only. And I never do it on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think that was really a game changer, that I didn't expect myself to do it every day or even 5 days. 4 just felt sustainable. And I started with just 2 minutes as my goal, and I eventually raised it to 5. Now pretty much 10 is my minimum, unless I'm like genuinely like running a fever sick or something. 10 is my, yeah, you have to get on the mat for 10 minutes. And then even if it's in the middle of a episode where she's doing a routine that's longer than that, I stop it. If I'm like, oh, 10 was my minimum and I'm not feeling it today, I let myself do that. So it's perfectly imperfect, if you will. It works because I have a baseline, I have structure and parameters around it that work for me, but it's not so rigid that I get into the all or nothing with it. Make it easy to stick to your routine. The smallest sustainable amount is the important thing to focus on, because that's where we build consistency. Remember, with ADHD brains, we are consistently inconsistent. So we have to find ways to break through the inconsistency so that what we're doing is doable. And if it's stupid small and it feels like, how can I check the box? Notice how it feels to check the box. If you get up and you walk for 1 minute every day and you check a box, that is more than if you did nothing every day and didn't check the box. So allow yourself to do what you can from where you are with what you have, and then notice how it feels to do it consistently. And if that's something to acknowledge, because in my book, consistency is always something to acknowledge and to capture what led to that consistency, because that is such a challenge for us. So remember, perfectionism is rooted in black and white thinking, and ADHD impacts that even more so because we can be very impulsive and we have difficulty with motivation, feeling it, sustaining it, staying connected to it. So some common pitfalls that I want to highlight here. Setting unrealistic expectations. I told this just in my example with the yoga. So do whatever the thing is, fill in the blank, every day without fail. If every day is too much, take a note from the experience I shared with the yoga Monday through Thursday. Maybe it's, I'm going to do it every Wednesday, decide when, where, and how much, and then allow yourself to notice if it's working for you and adjust based on what you notice. Out of all or nothing, that's one of those pitfalls. So missing one day does not equal failure. Missing a week or a month does not equal failure. It's representing there's resistance there. We need to explore what is at the base of that resistance, what's getting in the way. I always think of it as what's building a wall between me and what I'm trying to do, and how do I knock it down? Get out of that motivation, perfectionism loop of waiting for the perfect mood, the perfect amount of energy, the perfect time to start. There is no perfect. It's just doing it, checking the box, and figuring out what's the easiest first step. For me, it was just getting the yoga mat out and sitting on it. What I found was once I'm sitting on it, I will do the 10-minute minimum. So I don't even think about it. I just get it out and sit on it, and then allow myself to stop after 10 minutes if I need to. Not having clear actionable steps. So if your goal is to exercise more or to eat more healthy, that is not very actionable or clear. So it can really get in the way of connecting to what that means for you. So be specific. So instead of exercise more, have a goal of walking 2 to 5 minutes every day if you want to use the 25 and 25 structure. Or maybe just walk 5 minutes every weekday, whatever it is. Or having too many goals, trying to do everything all at once. We often, kind of notice, oh, I can't just focus on this one thing. I have to do all of these things. Don't let all of the things be the enemy of the one thing that you have the energy and capacity for. Focus on one thing. You can always do more if you want to, but hold yourself to one thing that you really are going to be focusing on, and avoid that overwhelm and shutdown mode. So here are some ADHD-friendly ways to do that. Focus on progress, not perfection. So again, celebrate any form of progress. If you did it once, celebrate. Something is more than nothing, and capture it in your success journal. That's how we push back when we do fall off our routines, and it always happens. Something will get in the way of doing what you're intending. So have a bare minimum, have a way to readjust so that you're getting out of that perfectionism and into acknowledging progress. Break your goal into a mini goal is another tip that can be really helpful for us. So for example, if your yoga goal, which mine was originally, was to do yoga for 30 minutes 5 times a week. I'm still, after 3 years, not doing yoga 5 times a week for 30 minutes each time, ever. That's just not going to happen. It's not something I'm interested in doing. But my mini goal became get on the mat for 2 minutes every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Make it something that you can do with ease so that you're building the momentum through the progress, the consistency. The next tip is to reframe what failure means or what a setback is. It's not evidence that you can't, it's information about where you are struggling with the plan. There's resistance there. Figure out what is getting in the way and allow yourself to shift it so you can do it. And then give yourself self-compassion. If we do fall off, allow yourself to focus on what you've been able to do, what you're going to do going forward, not beating yourself up. That negative self-talk is really what's going to drain our energy and stop us from making any more forward progress. So give yourself some self-compassion, give yourself rewards, allow yourself to incentivize what you're trying to do. Remember, establishing a new routine, adjusting or breaking a habit that wasn't working for you takes a lot of energy, effort, willpower, motivation. So anything that you're doing that's chipping away at that or building up a new one is something to incentivize to help pull you into it and keep you moving forward. So explore your intentions, see if you can modify one to make it more ADHD friendly, and share anything that you've noticed works for you in this episode 171 so we can learn from each other. Remember, we can do something. We can't do everything, but we can do one thing. All right, on to this week's book of the week. My dog has fallen asleep. Oh my gosh, I hope that it's so hard to not have Becca to talk to do this. All right, so the book of the week is Enclave by Robert Harris. So this is a movie that came out the end of 2024 with I always think it's just Voldemort, but Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, and John Lithgow are all in it. So here's a quick synopsis. The Pope is dead. Behind locked doors of the Sistine Chapel, 118 cardinals from all over the globe will gather to cast their votes in the world's most secretive election. They are holy men, but they are not immune to the human temptations of power and glory, and they are not above the tribalism and factionalism that consumes humanity. When all is said and done, one of them will become the most powerful spiritual figure on earth. I saw the movie after I read the book. It does stay pretty true to the book. They changed the main character's name, which I found really confusing. I don't know why they did that, but and then there was just a few little tweaks in there, but for the most part, it followed the movie very closely, which I always enjoy when a book does that. I like the book as always better, almost always better than the movie, but it did have a real, it was kind of a downer in some ways to see just how much corruption, and I know that, but to really kind of like experience the level of corruption and politics that goes on even in organized religion. And but I did find it really fascinating. My husband and I went to visit the Sistine Chapel when we were in Rome a few years ago, and somehow, and maybe I learned it but I forgot it, but I don't think so. I think I would have remembered, but it escaped me that that's where they do the voting for the new pope. And I found that really fascinating that they kind of, close it down for the conclave, and they set up these little portable stoves to send the smoke up when they do their vote, so that people know, if it's a black puff of smoke, then they didn't elect a pope. If it's white, they do have a new pope. And the whole process for the voting was really interesting. So from a historical perspective, I found it really fascinating. Overall, I enjoyed it. It was a quick read. And if you're into that type of book, then I do recommend this one. That's it for this episode 171. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and week, and I will see you next time. Until then, tally ho.